Hey, it's Deborah with Flipping 50, and I am popping in here because I'm getting so many questions as we get close to just a few days left for the anniversary sale for the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women, my signature course. It's like the baby. I'm getting so many questions about specific things that actually pertain to it, but also that pertain to muscle loss and to hormone balance. So I'm doing a little Q&A. I'm flashing my eyes down here to read the questions that have come in, and we've just kind of highlighted some of the most common questions, and the staff kind of pulled them out of the ticket support box to let me have at them. So here we go. Literally, I'm keeping an eye on the oven because I've got vegetables roasting, and I wanted to pop in and make sure that you've got these. So if you're thinking about the course and you're wondering, is this for me? So first of all, I want to make sure before I even launch into questions that you realize the course is not a workout program. So if you're only looking for the quick, fast answers and a workout, this is so much more, but you also may be disappointed if all you want to do is work out. So this is the why and the science and the how behind what it is you need to do. And what I realized when I wrote the book, after I've been working with women for 3 decades practically, when I wrote the book, now it's been almost 3.5 or a little more, that women, we need the why in order to change what we're doing and kind of lose that old mentality that we've learned and we've heard, eat less, exercise more, which gets us into trouble and taps out our cortisol and makes us more exhausted, actually will contribute to more inflammation, more stress, make us gain weight. So even in exercising more, you may actually gain weight. It happened to me last year. I was already registered for an Ironman distance triathlon. I'd already committed to making this my fittest year yet, and did it consciously, knowing this doesn't really fit with hormone balancing formula and the methodology that I've developed, but knowing that I know how to manipulate training better. But even I, because I had so many other stressors in that year, could not do it. So I've learned, and I'm passing that on to you. Let me dive into these questions. So I'm gonna rifle right through them. We'll speed date, you and I. So number one, why is there muscle loss with age is one of the questions. So it's a little open-ended, but I'm gonna open it guessing a little further beyond the need for the question or the why. So I'm gonna guess that you're already in midlife, that you're losing that muscle mass and wondering why is that happening. So if you're a woman who's in menopause, either late stage of perimenopause, maybe you're still having a period but it's not very regular, one of the reasons is because your estrogen is coming down. And estrogen, although we've always associated testosterone with muscle, estrogen protects our muscle and helps us gain muscle and maintain it. And as we have less of that, like so many other things, estrogen is responsible for. That is part of the reason it's so easy to lose it and harder to get it. It doesn't mean you can't, it just means we have to give it a little bit more effort. We can't strength train sometimes when it's convenient. That actually has to be high on your exercise priority list. And the other reason is it's a cumulative effect with age. Literally, age is the reason. We peak in our muscle mass, men and women, at about age 25, meaning that every year after that, it's actually easier to lose it than it is to maintain and definitely to gain it. That's if we're not consciously doing something about it. That something has to be resistance training. So you may say, well, I've always exercised, I've always been more muscular. And maybe you have played tennis or you've been a runner. You probably have had better muscle tone, but it doesn't mean that you're maintaining the total lean mass that you've had. So in fact, doing long endurance types of exercise or doing just lots and lots of exercise can, if you're not recovering well with the right nutrition and rest and specifically protein, you may actually be causing accelerated muscle loss as you age. We need more recovery time. We need better attention to specific nutrition. So it's both, an age-related thing, and for women in menopause, it's also an estrogen-related thing at that age that we're at. So I hope that helps. If you're a woman who's in her 50s or her 60s or beyond who has not strength training, that's another reason. So it's that compounding age and estrogen. So get after that, girlfriend. You've got to be strength training, and you've got to know, how do I do that according to my goals? So next is, when does muscle loss start? That is actually the next question. So I think I kind of wrapped that answer into this one. Muscle loss will start at about age 26. We don't know exactly where that window is for each one of us, but we peak at muscle mass just naturally at age 25. So do you remember when it was just so easy to, be active but not have to think about exercise, and you were relatively lean and fit and didn't have to worry about it so much? And then later in your 20s and early in your 30s, it's more visible because each year is compounding little bits of loss. Okay, excuse me. The next question is, how fast does muscle loss occur? Great question. So there's probably a 1 to 2% loss every year, or somewhere between 8 and 10% every decade. And a lot of factors come into play with whether you specifically or I lose that fast, and that's an average number, and none of us is actually ever that average. We either we're not losing that fast, or we're losing faster. So things can accelerate that. So if you have you've been ill, maybe you've had cancer, or you had something else that caused you to be at bed rest, your muscle loss is going to accelerate when you're not using your muscles. So not even counting exercise and lifting weights, but literally just not walking around and doing daily activities of life, that might have accelerated them. So that can occur much, much faster. And I'm going to also answer the other side of this. So someone may be asking, what about during, say, the pandemic? I'm not at the gym and I'm not lifting weights, or you're going on vacation. So if you're asking with that thought process, I'm going to try to intuit here that muscle loss that you're going to lose in a week or in 2 weeks, if you're going away, you're on vacation, or you're traveling, or the gym was closed, not significant, because as long as you get right back to it, you will regain that a lot faster than you got it in the first place. You're going to lose your cardiovascular fitness faster than you will lose your muscular strength. So you can kind of keep that in mind. And that will make sense when you think about the frequency, that during a normal week, you might strength train twice a week, which is optimal for women who are in their midlife and later. But cardiovascular types of exercise, you can do 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 times if you're careful, and they're different kinds, not the same. So hard and short and the easier and low to moderate, all those different kinds have a place in your life, but you do them more frequently. So if you're not doing them over a 2-week period, you're losing that much faster than you would lose your muscle strength. But again, you will rebound. But here's the thing. If during this pandemic, say the gym has closed, you're not at the gym, you're not lifting, you're not doing it at home. I know weights, dumbbells are hard to come by, but keep trying, keep visiting those local stores and or trying to order on Amazon. And we can't go 5 months. That's really detrimental for a woman in midlife. The accelerated loss of muscle during that menopause period of time. So menopause is like a blip on the screen. It's like that, okay, it's now been 12 months since your last period. You're in menopause, now you're in postmenopause. It's really just a mark on the line. Perimenopause is here, postmenopause is here. This is like, oh, you just crossed over. However, that last year of perimenopause, or the first year of that point where you're in postmenopause, that 2-year period of time is also sometimes called menopause. And you've got an accelerated muscle loss and accelerated bone loss that's happening. We can't afford that because we are also much better at fat storage. As our cortisol is up, inflammation is up, And, you know, if you're having a glass of wine a little too often, or you're making it 2 or you're making it 3, and you're having coffee to wake up, nothing wrong with coffee if you do it appropriately and you're sleeping well and you're exercising and doing all the other things you need to do. But coffee is not a substitute for water. Coffee is not a substitute for natural sources of energy. So it shouldn't be that you have to have coffee to get up, to get energy, and you have to have wine to relax. That's a vicious cycle, and that accelerates your inflammation and therefore your muscle and your bone loss. So we've got to be much more careful. It's like we were driving on this 4 or 8 lane highway, and now you're on this narrow 1-lane road, and you need to keep it between the navigational buoys, girlfriend. So it's faster loss right now. It's accelerated. That doesn't bode well for you, either in your genes, your skinny genes, or in 10 and 20 and 30 years. Think forward. How do you want to be living your life? The muscle and the bone density that you're holding on to and building now will take care of you later, or they won't. So super important to start lifting weights, doing something at home. I know somebody if you need some help, okay? So the next question is actually, I'm gonna do both of these at the same time. Will keto or will fasting cause muscle loss? So great question. So depending on how long you do either one of them and how you do them. So there are so many variables. So many of you know my good friend and yours, the girlfriend doctor, Dr. Anna Kabeka, wrote Keto Green 16. Fantastic book, really talking about keto and talking about how it actually helped her when she gained a dramatic amount of weight and in midlife and lost it. And I struggled because of my terrible 2019, and then having gained that 10 pounds, I actually struggled to lose it, even though I cut way back on my exercise. I just had so many stressors in 2019 that it was just, you know, I did all the lifestyle changes, I did all the legwork, and then I had to say, okay, uncle, I'm gonna test to see if I need bioidentical hormones and will benefit from them. And so started them. But, you know, I still believe you and I do the heavy lifting. We go to bed on time. We get up at the right time. We exercise appropriately. We make the right choices at all of our meals. We meditate, or we breathe deeply. We do those right things. That is what gets us 90% of the way. You may need that nudge. I did with the hormone support. But also I did Keto Green 16 with Anna. The difference is keto can backfire for women. We need carbs, I believe, for serotonin. A lot of the women I work with, I will put them on that first before we start exploring keto, and before we start exploring fasting. We've got to look at, are you in a good relationship with food, and are you eating the right things for your body anyway? So when you fast, you have to have come off of a good diet and eat good things when you are eating. It's not deprivation when you're in that eating window, and you've got to come back to eating a good diet afterwards. So you need to identify what that is before you even go into fasting. But with keto, you've got to bump up your greens. So your pH really needs some support, and that is another question. So there's a lot of educated people here who know enough to be asking these kinds of questions, but getting the right kinds of greens and vegetables to balance off the acidic property of such a high amount of protein when you're on keto. High amount of protein, high amount of fat, much of it often coming from animals. We want to switch some of that to plant, and you want to be having leafy green vegetables. You want to be having, I'm staring at my Brussels sprouts, my cauliflower, hopefully not burning in the oven. All of those things will help you. And when you're having adequate protein and you're eating a very high nutrient dense diet and have a balanced pH, we want to be right in the middle. We actually don't want to be more alkaline than that or acidic. We want to be right there with a balanced pH level. When you're there, then your body is nourished, and that's going to help you protect that lean muscle tissue. You've just got to be paying attention to getting the right sleep, making sure that the diet agrees with you. So not everybody is built for keto. And I did it for a period of time, but I can't do it permanently. My body, my DNA testing actually even confirms that I do better with a little bit more carb than the next person does. So I've got more energy, my thought process is better, my mood is better, and for a lot of women I work with, I also find that putting more carbohydrates in the evening meal, the right kind of carbohydrates, actually boosts their mood, and we need it at the right time to help sleep. So all of that I talk about in the course, in the sleep module and in the nutrition module. So you hear it again and again and again and again. In the hormone module, we talk all about that. The next question is, will HIIT cause muscle loss? It's a great question, but there are so many variables, okay? So one of them being this, that if you're doing too much of it, it will. So HIIT is fantastic for supporting your fat burning property that can happen because you're burning such a high amount of energy while you're doing it, and then you have this payback. So when you're working really hard in exercise, what happens is there becomes this debt. You have to pay it back. Your body's using a lot of oxygen. Your body is using a lot of other substrates to use that muscle and put it into action. And then there's little micro tears in the muscle after exercise. There always is. That's appropriate. That's why we have rest between exercise, and we don't exercise every day. But it also is important that you're not doing HIIT all the time. So there's a peak of about 45 minutes a week of high intensity interval training. And after that mark, what we see is that the injury rate tends to go up because probably the breakdown is happening too much. Those micro tears don't get a chance to heal in between. Now that might vary if you're doing some of your HIIT in the swimming pool and some of your HIIT on a bicycle where there's less impact, little less micro tearing, but there always is going to be some when you're working at a high capacity. You've got to have a little bit more recovery. Elite athletes. I spent 5.5 years in Boulder, Colorado at a club where I was beside and around, and my boss and good friend trains the elite world champions in triathlon. And what happens is they have hard days, but they take days off. They're not working out every day, all day, super hard. Some days are just easy days. Some days are nothing. They're recovery days for massage and foam rolling and relaxing with yoga, playing with their kids just like the rest of us would. So a little bit of HIIT is good. More HIIT is bad, right? It's Goldilocks. We're looking for that Goldilocks. So about 45 minutes means 3 15-minute sessions, or twice doing 20 or 25 minutes at a time, and working your way up. So you may feel like just starting one time of HIIT for 10 or 15 minutes is enough. And for a few weeks, that's where I would keep all of my clients. And then we would go to twice during the week. We'll do HIIT. Maybe once it's on a bike and once it's running hills. But it's varying, and it's allowing for recovery between those times that really dictates. The next question is, will walking cause muscle loss? Such a great question. So right now during the pandemic, I have been pounding this in. If you're only walking, yes, it will. In other words, the better way to say it is, walking alone will not spare muscle loss. And if you're walking a lot, or we could apply this to anything, if you're swimming a lot, if you are running a lot, if you're bicycling a lot, and you're not allowing adequate recovery, maybe not having adequate sleep, that's the queen and king and prince of recovery, or you're not doing weightlifting to also add lean muscle mass and add the strength that you need. And when I say that, I know saying the words muscle mass or mass, no woman wants to, excuse me, be associated with mass, but you do want muscle mass. You do want lean tissue. Lean tissue is much more dense than is fat. So fat and a certain weight may take up this kind of space. If you have dense lean muscle, it takes up this space. much less space. It weighs a little bit more, but it takes up less space. So you looking in the mirror, you putting on those jeans works better when you're more lean muscle mass. So you do want it because it will help you burn more calories and boost your metabolism level. Okay, one more question before my cauliflower burns. You would not want to be the person responsible for that. Okay, the next question really falls in line, so I'm going to skip this one. It's, will cardio cause muscle loss? So I think I've answered that one in this last question. So the last question that we've got highlighted is, how much protein do I need to avoid muscle loss? Good question. So you also have to be following all of the other things that we've talked about today, but the amount of protein that you need, that we shoot for, is really about 30 grams of protein at least 2 meals a day, ideally 3. So if you are somebody that we call them hard gainers, you're trying not to lose more muscle mass because you're already a thin or slimmer, fine boned, small framed woman. You don't want to lose any more because you are 30 years down the road, potentially more frail, much more easily. So we've got to get your muscles strong, also your bones strong, and the two of them play together well. But about 30 grams of protein at each of 3 meals, at the very least twice. But if you are small and not as muscular, you've got to be even more careful to get those. That number comes from research that has really been out in the public domain since about 2008. A couple researchers responsible both come from University of Texas Medical Branch, and so many fitness associations, American College of Sports Medicine, which kind of writes the Bible for a lot of things, pulled together great resources from researchers on protein, researchers on muscle, lean muscle, researchers on aging, nutritionists, including registered dietitians, who were all on this bandwagon that for aging, we all need an increased amount of protein, because our muscle protein synthesis ability to use what we do eat declines with age. So we need to be increasing it, not decreasing it. The more sedentary you are, that's even more true. Surprise, right? Because many of us would think, well, I'm not an athlete, so I don't need that much protein. Actually, you need it more. The more active we are, the more athletic in nature we are by being active people, our body synthesizes the protein that we eat even more because our muscles are more ripe for it. If you're doing resistance training, even more so, it helps you improve your lean muscle tissue by helping your muscle protein synthesis, and the two work together. Okay, you only have a few more days. So if you want to save $50 on the After 50 Fitness Formula for Women course, and I'm gonna do 3 live workouts with you. As soon as we close the doors, I'm gonna start putting out announcements to the brand new members who bought during our anniversary sale, and you'll get access to that, as well as the current students who are already in the course. You get those 3 workouts. That's a value because my time is $100 an hour when I meet one-on-one with people. So that's a value of $300 right there. I'll do a thorough strength training workout so you know the how-tos, the what you should feel, what you don't want to feel when you're doing it, and how to go through the workout and structure it. And then I'll do high intensity interval training with you as well, from warm up to doing those intervals in your house with no equipment. And then last, we'll do a daily stretch. I'll include a little bit of yoga, but for those of you that don't love yoga, we'll just make it a daily stretch. So at the end of every workout or the end of just every day, you'll have some go-tos there. You have access to that course for 12 months so that you can go through it with me in 8 weeks. We structure it for you, and I send you those email nudges. I'm watching you. And I answer your questions in the private Facebook group, but then you can always come back and revisit it. You know, January comes. What a perfect time, right? So there you have it. Now's the time. It increases, the price increases September 1st, and you're getting access to the 2.0 version. I am recording right now. I'm in module 5 is next. We're recording and re-recording and looking at all of the worksheets, updating it all so that it is current time, because the research is coming out faster and faster. We need to be on top of it because we deserve all the energy and the vitality that we want. All right. I will see you on the flip side, hopefully inside.